Coming up on the show, we'll look at the political consequences of this recession for both Kevin Rudd and Malcolm Turnbull with our panel, Mark Kenny and Steve Lewis. First, the Shadow Treasurer Joe Hockey joins me from Sydney. Joe Hockey, thank you for joining us. The Reserve Bank Governor says there's no precedent for Australia avoiding an international downturn of this size. Is this recession we're now apparently in due to global factors?
Well, everyone is very keen to blame everyone else. Ultimately, someone has responsibility for fixing the problem, and that's the job of the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister has to put in place policies that are going to not only create jobs but keep jobs. And
well, obviously, I'll get to those policies in a moment. But what's caused this recession we're now apparently in? Is it, as Glenn Stevens and Kevin Rudd say, global factors?
Well, unquestionably, we had a situation where people across the world borrowed too much money. That's one of the reasons why. Credit was inexpensive. It inflated asset values. And when those asset values started to fall and there was a massive destruction of wealth around the world, credit became far more expensive. In fact, it became very hard to get. And that's one of the reasons why, David, we are highly critical of the government's approach to this. They are spending too much money and they are spending it unwisely in many areas, and effectively they are trying to borrow their way out of this downturn. And this is going to cause us long-term problems.
Just to clarify, are you blaming Kevin Rudd for this recession, or are you saying there's nothing he could have done to avoid it?
Well, Kevin Rudd's unquestionably made the situation worse. He's made the situation worse.
Is he to blame for the recession?
Well, no, look, I mean, firstly, you said it's official we're in recession. It is not official that we are in recession. You said that in your introduction. In fact,
the Prime
we're waiting.
Minister says it, the Reserve Bank Governor says it. You're not convinced?
Well, David, just because they say that it is inevitable we are heading into recession doesn't mean it's official. I take the Prime Minister.
We are in one.
Well,
Glenn Stevens says we're in one. Is he wrong?
Look. Let's just get to the facts of the matter. The modern definition of a recession is 2 quarters of negative growth, right? So that's the starting point. We haven't officially had the second quarter. Having said that, in the rush for everyone to declare we are in recession or not in recession, the bottom line is this. When everyone continues to talk down the economy, there's no hope that you're going to generate the confidence that Glenn Stevens talked about. And since October last year, when, with a sense of panic, the Prime Minister said it's going to be bad, really bad, and went into hyperdrive in implementing an extended guarantee, and then he had to pull it back on bank deposits when he announced a cash splash of $10 billion and then a further cash splash of another $12 billion on top of the enormous other growth in expenditure. Australian consumers were panicked, and they were panicked because they saw their Prime Minister panicked.
Are you saying Glenn Stevens is also hurting confidence if he is, as he said today, says we're in recession?
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm effectively saying is it is the job of the Governor of the Reserve Bank to call it as it is, but it's the job of the Prime Minister.
You're doubting whether we are in recession, and he's saying we are.
I'm sorry, please don't put words into my mouth. It is the job of the Prime Minister to inspire confidence. And I'm saying that the Prime Minister, since he was first elected, there is universal agreement that the government got it dead wrong when they started talking up inflation early last year. When they declared war on inflation, just let me finish, David. When they declared war on inflation, it was hugely damaging to the Australian economy. It had a huge impact on confidence in the Australian economy, together with the Reserve Bank increasing interest rates twice in a short period of time early last year. Now, what that combination effectively did was to stall the Australian economy at exactly the wrong time. And then we had a panicked response in October after the collapse of Lehman's, and that panicked response frightened the hell out of Australian businesses and consumers, with the net result that we are in a more significant downturn than perhaps we should be because the government has panicked. And of course, they have overspent. They've spent too much money and they've spent it too quickly in many wrong areas.
But I just want to be clear about this, Joe Hockey. You're not convinced we are in recession despite the Reserve Bank Governor's comments today?
David,
I just want to clear that up.
Look, we probably are in recession. In fact, if you want to be technical about it, we've been in a non-farm recession for some months now. The non-agricultural GDP was negative in the September quarter. So, you know, I've been saying all along, for those people, you know, who need to get down to the technicalities, the bottom line is, if we're not in recession, it feels like we are in recession. And I tell you what, for anyone who has lost their job or is about to lose their job, it doesn't matter whether you call it a recession or an economic downturn. The bottom line is, how do I get my job back?
OK, well, let's look at how we get out of recession. You've pulled apart Kevin Rudd's response to this as too much spending. He's today hinting at even more economic stimulus in the budget. What would be your take on that? Well,
of course he will. Kevin Rudd hasn't made any hard decisions as Prime Minister. It's not hard to spend money. It's hard to pay it off. It's not hard